This Maltby channel for another live, extemporaneous ramblings of a madman. I appreciate you being here. Once again, you have entered into the world of unscripted, unsponsored, unsupported ramblings, where we would discuss gold and silver, sound money, economics, and I share my randomized thoughts with you guys. And it just came upon me recently, actually. You know, this is one of those videos that I didn't set forth to make. I never have notes or anything like that. But give me a quick sound check. Let me know who's here as we're live. I can see a few. Got Lisa Willis, Napalm Death. Good to have all of you in the chat for this live discussion. Appreciate you all being here. Good morning. Mark Gutierrez, channel member. Good to have you as well. Physics Hypernova. And if I don't greet all of you, I'll try to greet you at the end. EW Fisher 89, welcome, good morning, because I would like to get right to the content. And good morning, Mimaru and Johnny Boy Silver, Mike L, all of you. There's so many of them here. And then we got Karamia. I believe you're one of the patron members. Patreon, good to have you as well. So thank you all patrons and channel members for being here, supporting the channel. Always. DW, I see you, Sam Evans. Goodness, you're all showing up. It seems like it's a popular morning to be on a live on the Junius Maltby channel. Call of the Wild from Scandinavia. Good to see you as well. And Mrs. Maltby working in her office approximately 80 feet. Let me see. Probably 40 feet away, 30 feet away. I don't know. On the other side of the wall in another room. I've got my strange listener supporter tea here that was sent to me this week. I'm not dead yet, and I've drank several cups full. As you know, it is a remarkable earthy and mellow tea that one of their friends recommends, and I can't tell you enough how good this tea is. So that's what I'm drinking right now. And I'm going to get to the content in just a moment. We'll let everyone fill in here before we jump right into it. Oh man, it's still piping hot. Piping hot. Crikey. All right. You know, this is a debate that comes up so often. It's the gold versus silver thing. It's one of those hills that I'll never choose to die on. To me, it is probably one of the most energy-consuming wastes of dialogue, debate, resources, schisms, divisions. I mean, it is, to me, useless. It is a complete utter waste of time. It's probably a debate that's existed for a long time in history. I think it's gotten worse these days. You know, back in the day, yeah, there were different valuations for silver in different continents. You had trade between England and China. The Spanish circulated their silver around the world, facilitating trade. But ultimately, the free market just kind of balances things out. It's only a problem when you have massive manipulation, interventions, government intrusion into these contract dealings, into the trade of precious metals and how they flow. I didn't get any silver out from my Roman Empire. I could lean behind me and grab a little booklet of denarius. As a matter of fact, I will, because I forgot to grab those. Don't worry, they're only 2 feet away. So let me just turn around real quick and grab these. It's part of the conversation. Bear with me. There we are then. Righty then, I've got them. Roman coinage. All right. Sorry, that was my British officer friend. He was helping me grab these. So let's get back to it. Okay, this is some important stuff. The reason I wanted to share this with you is I've got a couple of observations I've made over the last several decades in the precious metals world. But I'll tell you, being on YouTube, it really tended to exacerbate it. Now, I'm going to bring this one denarius out because we'll use him as well in part of this discussion. So as I said, it's a waste of time. Truly, truly is a waste of time. And you've got so many people. You know, it makes for good headlines. It makes for eye-catching videos. I've tried to avoid them over the years. Those, the clickbait title of like, you know, silver's worthless, gold to the moon. Or the vice versa, you know, gold not worth $100 an ounce, silver 50 million. You've seen them. You know, the big flashy thumbnails declaring these vitriolic or completely asinine valuations of either of the two, the debate between them, and then people go at each other's throats about it. You have channels that are literally you know, a precious metals channel in a way, you know, that's completely gold leaning. I mean, I myself, I'll be honest, and I've always been upfront with this. I believe in both, right? I like both. I've stacked both. Well, actually, silver mostly from as a child because it was more affordable, right? But I've always leaned really bullishly towards the monetization and the support that gold has historically because of the modern, you know, the banking methodologies, backing reserve currencies and things like that. But both, in my opinion, have always served as money for the longest periods of time. These are the ancient metals. These date back over 65 centuries. The Greeks, the Romans, all the way up, the Lydians, every empire, every civilization, nearly every people group. And I don't like to use the word diversification of portfolios. Diversification in a portfolio is, to me, is using the word means that you don't really know what direction anything's going in, so you just use this shotgun approach. You can have all your eggs in one basket. You just got to watch that basket, right? I don't look at gold and silver as diversification by having one or either or. To me, they're one and the same. It's exposure to sound money metals. It's exposure to ancient 6,500 years worth of human history, economic practices, monetary usage. I mean, the list, this channel's covered it all, going back as far as I could when it comes to discussing the history of these metals. They've both had their ups and downs. We've seen the waxing and the waning of both as far as influence on economies. There's a lot of discussion about the crime of 1873 here in the United States. We've seen the history of gold being banned, confiscated, removed from currencies. We've talked all about it, right? And one of the reasons I've steered away from the gold versus silver, eye-catching thumbnails and the discussion on it, even though I've interjected and sprinkled like a spice into my videos my somewhat mocking opinions at times of silver, saying, hey, it's the little crippled cousin of gold. He's got to pick up his crutches and run. I've always cheered him on. Because there's no debate that silver has had its volatile century of ups and downs. But again, that's indicative actually of all of the intrusions on it, not allowing it to run freely, not allowing it to perform, in a free market way. The ETFs have invaded that space. You've got governments invading that space, manipulations, because the attempt to keep fiat currencies looking strong, like the dollar. There is definitely a lot to be said for the reason silver valuations are where they are versus where gold valuations are where they are. And I think both, honestly, both are extremely undervalued, but you'd have to spend volumes of time explaining each one of those reasons, going down the list on how gold is suppressed, going down the list on how silver is suppressed, looking at money supplies, looking at, of course, with gold, we've talked about recently how the Fed and the Treasury, they value gold at $42.22 an ounce. Are you kidding me? And what do they still value silver at? I think there's actually an official valuation on silver per the United States government. It's like, dollar something an ounce or whatever. I got to be honest, I haven't looked at that in years. I know I covered it. At some point, I've discussed that, but I don't remember the actual number when it comes to the United States official government number that they place on silver. So we can agree that both have served their roles in history, correct? Yeah. And both, a lot of people like to say, and this is the best part, when it comes to the debate on silver and gold, you get these individuals out there that say that silver, isn't going to be worth anything. Gold's the only way to go. And they base that on past performance, which, as we all know, is no guarantee for future performance. Silver, of course, we all know it is a very highly undervalued commodity, highly undervalued asset. One of the only, I think the only one that hasn't reached an 80-year high. We all know that both have served as money. I'll keep repeating that throughout this. And then a lot of people like to quote the monetization of gold held by banks, how it's held by the Fed. And I agree with that. There is essentially both arguments that people try to come up with. This is why it's a waste of time, really. It's like debating religion, the existence of things, the origins of the species or the universe. Neither of us will ever really have irrefutable scientific evidence or proof of the existence of God or the non-existence of God and all of these things. So it's really again, it's an all-consuming, time-consuming, energy-consuming waste of discourse and dialogue, when essentially we are, and I'll get to this, on the same team, gold and silver people, both. I would hope that you are both. I would hope that you are exposed to both. I would truly hope you do have both. And that would be a long discussion in itself. But there's no way to back either side. Both have very, very, very convincing arguments on why one should be this and why the other should be that. Why is gold so valuable? The history of gold and its wealth over time, or why is silver? Every side, both discussions have an extremely large amount of information, data. So what's the point? I mean, again, you cannot prove either, in my opinion. You cannot prove either. It is a never-ending debate, as physics says. And yes, both are money. It's a waste of time. It's very divisive. It's a very ignorant argument. And you'll see channels, hem and haw or take a significant position in one direction or the other. I will give you, I don't think any channel is Switzerland in this. When it comes to metals, I think some people lean one way and some people might lean a little bit the other way. Some are all the way over here. Some are all the way over here, on the meter. If the screen is the meter, everyone's somewhere on that meter. I myself, I probably do lean a little bit towards gold, a little bit, but I still value silver. And you have other channels that are 100% gold or nothing, silver is, they only own silver because they're a collector, they don't like it. And you'll have other people that are like all the way silver, no gold. You can't hold gold. If you hold gold, you're on the side of the elite or the banks. Gold's worthless. There's more gold than silver. That I'll never agree with. However, I could just rattle off just some of the mining statistics, the geological statistics, the fact that there is, in fact, 1 ounce of gold for every approximate 17.5 ounces of gold in the Earth's crust. We've known that. But again, then we could say 50% of the silver ever mined has been destroyed, lost, or forgotten, right? And of course, I've quoted recently the investable supply, the amount of above-ground investable grade silver, is essentially 1-to-1 with gold, according to some sources. But that's, again, not, we can take into account then, of course, there's still silver left in the crust, but then again, we've got peak silver at possibly 2032, 2034, somewhere in that range, just nearly a decade away, facing peak silver production on the planet. Interesting. Point is, again, this isn't going to be a long, drawn-out video. I might get into some fun numismatic stuff towards this, but I wanted to just say, look, they are both highly, highly historical, long resume, long track record, highly valuable stores of wealth. They're both liquidity anchors. Both of them are superior to the one common enemy you and I have. What is that enemy? Fiat, paper, unbacked trash coupons, monopoly notes, the leper currencies, the dollars issued by the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve note, I hate calling them dollars. I'm sorry. I know that they're not a dollar. This is a dollar. This is a dollar. The enemy is the U.S. dollar, the Federal Reserve note. I just said dollar again. See that? That's what brainwashing does. Years and years and years of them calling it what it's not. It's not a dollar. A dollar is a specific weight and purity of silver. We know that. Today what circulates is notes, Federal Reserve notes. Again, I've seen so many channels talk about this, and they love it. They love to get the clicks and the views, and I'm probably doing it today. Someone will say, oh, you're doing it. You just did a gold versus silver video. Yeah, I haven't done very many. I've probably done maybe one other one ever. And I can assure you this will be the last. There's no reason to do it because, again, it's a waste of your time. It's a waste of my time to discuss it. So hopefully this nips it in the bud for you. Hopefully after this video, you never click on another gold versus silver video ever again and waste your time. And the first thing, as soon as somebody brings up gold versus silver and starts to rattle off some facts, quote facts, or starts to espouse some, zealous opinion one way or the other, you can save your time, you can save your ears, and you can click off and delete that video and never watch it again. It'll save you plenty of time. It'll save you plenty of energy. You won't have to enter chats. You won't have to write a debate or a comment and reply to a thread. You can just avoid it altogether. The gold versus silver debate is a tremendous waste of time. It is the dumbest thing you could enter into, honestly. when it comes to precious metals, numismatics, coinage, bullion, it is the single stupidest, asinine waste of time and effort and energy that you could do. It's just, that's the way it is. It's not an opinion, actually. I'm going to let you know that's a fact. Neither side will ever be proven correct or right. And I will tell you right now, these metals will both go together. And I will tell you that silver very well likely has the most tremendous upside potential percentage-wise gains ahead of it. That's my opinion, though, for a variety of reasons. Now, let's look at let's look at some old school silver gold ratios, because again, they've circulated throughout time, right? Now, this is that little half sovereign a wonderful friend of mine gave to me as a gift recently, and I've never had a half sovereign ever. And I wanted to share this in a video, and I'm going to use it in several videos. I will probably do an entire series just on the sovereigns and half sovereigns and that the gold story behind these. They're just an amazing, amazing coin. Look at that symbolism of gold versus evil. Or good, yeah, gold. Gold versus evil. That's a great headline right there. You know, it's very similar to good versus evil. Gold versus evil, the story of one precious metal versus the banks. But no, good versus evil. Slaying that dragon. 1912, very remarkable condition. And I've often pointed to this fact, and I'm going to use this coin as an example. The reason you often see gold in such fine and immaculate, beautiful condition, when it's even 100 years old or 110-year-old coins, such as this, when you see them in this remarkable shape, it's because they did not circulate widely. This was a liquidity acre. It was a store of wealth, probably represented by notes, paper, or contracts of some kind. But if you look at, silver from essentially the same time period, a little bit early. Where's my other? There it is. And there, half a crown here. There's a half crown there. What year is that? 1915. 1915. And this 1915 crown is half crown. Sorry, is in also very, very clean, good shape. But you can see it's definitely more worn. And I've got some that, this one, much older, very worn. They circulated quite widely and much more so than gold. You would, again, silver circulates, pays for the everyday goods and services. This is one of my points I'm trying to get to here, and I was kind of building up slowly, is the role that these both play in the metals economy. Gold's that liquidity anchor utilized for large purchases, supporting large projects, construction, militaries, taking delivery of a large amount of goods, building a ship. There's just so much that gold helps to fund because it's a much more typically condensed store of labor and wealth. And it's one of the ultimate extinguisher of debt, the ultimate payment. As Marx said, as most parts of the political spectrum debate of economics will tell you, that all contracts and all capital eventually flows into gold. Silver being that commodity that circulates widely, paying for honestly, it has, when it came to let's talk about the velocity of silver and gold in an economy. There's no question on this. If you go back hundreds upon hundreds of years, 1,000 years actually, let's go back 5,000 years, I would almost guarantee you that throughout human history, as both of these metals circulated, they are circulating at a speed, right? How fast they're changing hands, the velocity of money. Silver always would have, and always does have, more of a velocity than gold. It's changing hands more quickly. It's extinguishing more debts. It's consuming more goods and services and going from person to person throughout the economy much quicker and much more often than gold. That's circulation. That is why the circulation wears upon the silver more so than the gold. And that's obvious by essentially all coinage that's in people's possessions today. Any coin of antiquity, any numismatic coin will show you that is true. Obviously, if it's you can't really compare if it's a proof coin or a special edition coin that was just held in a case or a capsule, or in a pouch his whole life. It's not going to be the case. But your common coins that were issued are definitely going to see differences in circulation. And that's because of value over time. And people just did not circulate gold as often. You would have never walked around with a bag full of gold coins. You would have a bag full of silver clanking about to pay for your everyday goods. I mean, even, I've told you this many times. I mean, a half crown back in the day, just to show you the purchasing power, this would purchase an entire pig. This less than half an ounce of silver, essentially. But this little half sovereign here, that's 0.11 or something, a little over a tenth of an ounce. It's decimal 11, I think 57 troy ounces, but a little over a tenth of an ounce of gold held in this little tiny coin. This store of wealth is so large that back then, I mean, when you look at sovereigns and half sovereigns, you would have come across very few of these. People would have very seldomly held a gold coin at this time period, especially people in my class, where I exist in the economic spectrum. And if you look at how many sovereigns, I actually have, let me get it out because this is one of those fun things. I like discussing the old British coinage. It's entertaining to me. Here's a little chart I made years ago to understand it. So that's a British pound, a full sovereign. Now this would be a half. This is a half sovereign right here, half a pound. Now, so that would be, if you broke it down, it would break into that. That's about how much these coins would represent this one. And I'm going to show you visually here for a second. So one British, just circulation storage, you know, paying for goods. One British sovereign, if this was one, would have represented 4 crown. But this is a half, so that's why I had it sitting like this. Move these off to the side. Just think of this for a minute when it comes to the return of silver's value potentially. This will help give you guys a little bit of a perspective on why, again, going back to silver being as valuable as I think it should be. And I'm going to bring up a couple of points here. I'll rewind it real quick, and we'll go to the day's labor. There's a denarius from Rome, a day's labor, correct?
Junius?
Yes?
It's a little disappointment in the channel chat.
What's that? Oh, because I'm not using British
When
accents?
you're discussing British coins.
Okay, I'll work on that. So I'm trying to get to a significant economic point with silver here. It's, all right. So when you, no, I almost went to an Australian accent there. See, it's very difficult some mornings. I confuse the two. Again, denarius, a day's labor. I want you to remember that always. A day's labor for this. Significant purchasing power for silver back then. We've talked about that. I made a video recently talking about how silver, most likely in the ancient world and such, had an equivalency of like $600 to $1,200 an ounce in purchasing power. Now let's even go to more, not modern times, but just recent history. In recent history. Now, for the sake of math, can we just kind of change the amount of metal that are in these two coins and the gold coin? Just call this for now. I mean, if you want to get real picky on it, yes, this is about 0.1157 ounces of gold. I cannot rattle off the exact troy ounces in a crown right now. I know they're less than an ounce of silver. I know that, but we'll just call them an ounce for now, and we'll call this about a tenth. Keep this in mind. At this time period, these two, let's call them ounces of silver, were exchangeable for this 10th ounce of gold about. And roughly, as is evidenced right here. Again, that's a full pound, a full sovereign, but it's broken into 4 crown. So 2 crown would equal a half a sovereign. This is remarkable. Now think about this. So let me just challenge you with this. Do the math. If tomorrow morning we woke up and you could, and silver reached a value, gold stayed stagnant, pretend gold stayed right where it was. Pretend for a moment that the price of gold stayed where it is today at approximately $1,740 per ounce. And then pretend for one moment that a tenth of an ounce of gold was then equal to 2 ounces of silver coin. I would challenge you to examine then what the value of these coins might be. I beg of you the question, what value would silver then have should 2 ounces of silver coins represent a tenth of an ounce of gold? Could someone present with me the arithmetic, the numbers, the math, if you will, on the screen and in the comments. It's quite remarkable. A tenth of an ounce of gold would be approximately $173. Now divide that into 2, and you would have the valuations of the silver. What do you have then? 173 divided by 2. Yes, thank you, Mike. $87 per ounce. See that now, ladies and gentlemen, that was fun. Think of that for 1 second now. Just think about it. Imagine going back, or imagine, and that price point existed for a significant amount of time. Now, I know this was a gold versus silver. That's done. We're not debating that stuff anymore. I just like looking at history now. Now we're going to talk about coinage. We're going to talk about purchasing powers. This is me on the random extemporaneous ramblings. This is the Junius Maltby channel. History, coinage, numismatics. We're jumping all over the place. Yeah. So buckle up, buckle up. $87 an ounce. Can you believe that for 1 second? Let me get an ounce of silver out of here. Where are you at? Where are you at, ounce? There you go. Imagine this. Imagine this, ladies and gentlemen. $87 an ounce. And that's if gold didn't even move. Now imagine you've got, $5,000 an ounce gold, right? That's $500 for a tenth. That's $250 an ounce. You start getting back, and here's something to consider as well, my friends, is the amount of silver has decreased that's in circulation and available for investment. Because, again, like we've talked about, the industrial consumption and being destroyed and all the different various applications of silver. But I wanted to point out that we're at a time in history. We're at a time in history where silver is the most undervalued it has ever been, I would argue, since the beginning of man. Since the beginning that humans have encountered it as a metal. Again, there was a time where this represented a full day's work. And yes, there was a time where, later on where a half a crown a little bit bigger chunk of silver would be a full day's work. But throughout history, the Spanish Empire, the British Empire, the American Empire, the French, all that time, both circulated, both moved goods and services, extinguished debts, provided stores of labor, and remarkably so. Remarkably so. And I would tell you, when you go look at Britain and the Britons, England, the United Kingdom, and in Great Britain, I believe the year was about 1530, that this coin here, the sovereign, began to be struck. This one here, this edition, the modern-like sovereigns, were first struck in 1817 under George III. Where is it? There he is, there. This would be the first year that the sovereigns were struck under Great Britain. I would love to have a year of our Lord 1817 British sovereign with a garter belt on the reverse surrounding. Oh, it would be beautiful. But again, during that time of gold and silver circulating in Britain, the ratio would be this little half sovereign was equal to those two. So, and again, I'm not saying that gold would stay the same. I think, honestly, you look at the extinguishment, again, back to that pig thing, and then look at the labor real quick. I've shared this with you guys before, and I'll just read it to you. In 1700 to 1860, a carpenter was paid about 2 shillings and 6 pence a day. 2 shillings. Where's that? Where's my shillings at? I know I have them in here somewhere. 2 shillings. Maybe not. So I don't have my 2 shillings out. That's okay. You could just understand that 2 shillings, 6 pence a day for a carpenter, to approximately 5 shillings at times. So it was a range. Half a crown to a crown. In the 1700s, so I can just get that at 1860. Let's go half crown here. So imagine a carpenter How much does a carpenter make today? Carpenters in the chat, hands up. Carpenters in the chat. If you're in construction, you're building houses. So during this time period, let me put this right over here. Anywhere between a half an ounce to 1 ounce, all right? I don't know a single carpenter that's going to work for like 10 or 20 bucks today. Now listen, for over 160 years, and I'm sure it was not, the changes outside of that time range were likely not that much. But what I mean by that is, like, before 1700, it was probably a little different than this, and after 1860, it might have been a little different, but it wasn't that big of a range. But let's just talk about the date range of 1700 to 1860, you would be paid approximately a half a crown to 1 crown as a carpenter, depending on your skill set, for an entire day's work. You're talking about hundreds of dollars in silver valuation and purchasing power as a liquidity anchor and a store of wealth during that time period. Remarkable amount of wealth stored in silver. But again, that's why, today a full day's work for a carpenter would be measured in, if you did it into gold, what are they making? They're making like $40 to $50 an hour. I know because I know some. Now look at this. An engineer in the 1810s, ready for this? An engineer made about 110 pounds a year, which would be 220 of these little boogers, about 220 of these, but 110 pounds, so 110 quarter ounces of gold. They're about, because a sovereign's about 0.2354, but about 7 shillings 6 pence a day. 7 shillings 6 pence a day would be the wage of an engineer during that time period. Now, in the last decades of the 19th century, the 1800s, they estimated that it required about 18 to 20 shillings a week. So about 4 crown. I'll bring those out. Let's get these 4 silver crown here. Here's 4 silver crown. Now this would have been equal. Let's make some room. Make room, coins, make room. Okay, 4 crown. William Booth estimated that 18 to 20 shillings a week, about 4 crown for a working family to get by. 22 shillings to 30 shillings was required to be comfortable. Now, there's 20 shillings, all right? 20 shillings to the pound. 20 shillings. Again, ladies and gentlemen, silver historically has been quite more valuable than it is today. Quite more valuable, a lot more valuable in its purchasing power and in its strength. But again, I think both have been. And when you look at the debt of this country, that growing, we just talked about that a lot yesterday. When you look at inflation, the doom and the gloom of pointing out facts. Shut the hell up. The people that don't like the doom and the gloom, they talk about it. It's so funny to me. People that think talking about inflation, talking about economic realities and paradigm shifts that exist outside of their normalcy bias, and they get upset. They don't like it. Well, then go away. Go watch Happy Feely things. Go watch the Kardashians or contemplate your navel. I don't know. Do something else. Leave me alone. I don't want to hear your banter. You guys, your hopium. Go smoke your hopium. This is not times for wishful thinking. This is times for adequate preparations for things to come. Things to come. Now, gold, yeah, I think gold's equally undervalued. That's why they're both going to go up. When you look at the wages of the past and what gold could purchase and the price of a home in Victorian England or in the United States, I'll tell you right now, gold is significantly undervalued. Oh, you ready for something crazy? You ready for something crazy? Gold's going to have a Bitcoin event. What do you mean by that, Junius? I mean 50 to 80,000 an ounce. That's what I said. Asinine, crazy, right? That's psychotic. 50 to 80,000 dollars an ounce. How's that possible? Well, because the dollar is going to plummet dramatically. It's going to be incredible. Just think, Back when Bitcoin was a penny, right? Remember that? And everyone's like, oh, even me. You guys are crazy. It's never going to that. Was $1? Yeah, you guys are nuts. $100, you guys are freaking crazy. 1,000, crazy. 60 grand, crazy, right? Now, what's the ultimate liquidity anchor of all time? The ultimate extinguisher of debt? The ultimate store of labor for 65 centuries. What's that going to do? It's highly suppressed, right? Both of them. 50 to 80 grand. Do the math. 2 ounces to a tenth. What is silver? What's silver? Come on. Well, let's just go with this. If this is 50,000, right? That means this guy appears about 5 grand. 5,000 for a tenth? That's $2,500 an ounce silver. What? Crazy math. It's possible. But then again, the world would be quite ugly at that point, I would imagine. But you'd still be able to buy bread. You would still eat. You'd still have food. You remember all of those people? I'm sure there's a couple listening now. You can't eat silver, Junius. I never said that it was a digestible commodity. I never claimed its nutritional benefits. Never once. I know you can't eat silver. I don't think anyone would argue that fact, Captain Obvious. But if you don't have silver, you can't eat. It's that simple. That quote was born in this channel yesterday with you guys. You can't eat silver and gold, but in hyperinflation, without silver and gold, you don't eat. These are how humans have acquired food, goods, and services since the beginning of time. Both circulate side by side. Neither one is enemies of the other. There's no reason to practice precious metals monogamy. You're not violating any law or ethic by holding gold or silver together. They can sit, look at this, they can hang out right with each other. They're not like, there's no magnetism that drives them apart. Hold them. Buy both. Buy what you know what I used to do when I was a kid? I'll tell you. Well, when I was not a kid, I was a teenager working construction. Now, this is crazy. I was making like 16 plus an hour back then, working in the construction industry. Think of this. Now, I can't imagine. What were my wages? Compare my wages back then. If I was making 16 something an hour and silver in that time period, it was the low of 99. Gold was approximately 260 to 300. I'd get paid, and I was able to, back then as a young man, buy an ounce or two or more of gold and put the change into silver when I was trying to save for college and stuff. And it's incredible, the difference in wages, because, back then I would get paid that $16 an hour, do a week's worth of work. I was able to buy some metal. That's crazy. Back then, I was making like 4 ounces of silver worth. I mean, today it's like $100 an hour in silver, what I was making. I mean, silver was what, $4, $5, $6 an ounce back then? I don't even remember. Again, it's all over the place, these numbers. And again, there's no debate there. They're both going up equally. They're both going to be valued. They're both linked and tied to each other. They're both ancient metals. They are both liquidity anchors, stores of value. There's no competition between them other than what's created in your own mind and what's created by those in different halls of power that wish to sway the public one way or the other for their own greedy reasons, playing arbitrage between the two or such. Just let the free market operate. They'll find their values. It settles out. It balances out. Both have acquired goods and services since the beginning of time. And of course, we all know, we just talked about the velocity of that silver has essentially probably done a lot more of that. I mean, if any coin was evident of that, it would be this one, the pillar dollar of that time period. This coin, in the hulls of ships, transporting goods and services around the world for hundreds of years, probably extinguished more debts and paid for more services and more goods and more spices and more porcelains and ceramics and trade and tobacco and you name it, gunpowder and lead, than anything else in the world. Of course, the gold was used to fund the building of the ships, the expansion of empire, building of fortifications, roads, bridges, industrial things, application, you name it. I mean, gold was funding things just at the same time, just much slower. Wasn't changing hands as often. But again, both are valuable. There's a reason both have fallen out of circulation, no longer minted by governments. Gold first, and then silver, both removed from circulation, no longer minted by the governments of the world. There is no sound money today. A lot of talk about the reintroduction of these. I could talk about that all day, the video, but I'll tell you right now, you could buy an original 100-year-old coin for about half the price in remarkable shape of what's going to be introduced soon, the new ones, just so you know. You can get an MS-63 or so piece dollar for like 40 to 50 bucks some places, 50 bucks online. So again, consider that if you're looking at the one the U.S. Mint's coming out with for like 80 or 90 bucks. That's all you need to know about that. It's a bunch of hype. U.S. Mint's got no skill, no talent. The only nice coins they make are the ones they make that are copies of the originals. That's it. Yeah, the new one might be nice to have as a conversation piece, but it's not worth what they're asking for. That's for darn sure. Yeah, you could buy some really nice, for 85 bucks, you could probably get an MS-65 or greater, MS-66, maybe even higher. You can probably get an extremely high-grade original piece dollar for the 85 the Mint's asking now. So just consider that when they're pushing the new ones. You could probably get an original. Same with the Morgans, 85, 90 bucks. Yeah, go look at original Morgans graded. For that, you could get 100-year-old coins. And anyway, that was my take today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was a fun discussion. Just wanted to talk about that real quick. Gold versus silver, it's a waste of time. Ignore it, get away from it, and just talk about other things, better things. Both have the same enemy, fiat. Moving on, that's it. Let's talk about the big things, the real issues, the key issues. Not waste our time talking about gold versus silver. Have both. Have chests full of both. That's it. That's all you need to know. And that's my answer to that question. Every time, Junius, should I buy gold or silver? Both. I only have X amount to spend. I don't know. Whatever you're comfortable with. Buy a quarter ounce of gold, a couple ounces of silver, move on. Doesn't really matter. Hold both, buy both. That's it. That's my answer to that. Big deal. It's a waste of time. But thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. I'm glad you guys got to share this morning with me. A morning of tea, some ancient coinage, a little bit of looking at my new half sovereign, my half a pound. Thank you to the wonderful viewer that made this coin come into my life. Friend of the channel, good person. Thank you. It's just a wonderful, beautiful piece. And I have never owned a half sovereign. Just an awesome little store of wealth. Look at this thing. Makes a great piece to add to my British coinage collection, and I will be using it in further discussions as we go forward with these. But all of you take care of yourselves. Have a good rest of your day. Hope to see you all maybe this evening. Mrs. Maltby and I perhaps doing a reading of an article, an exquisite article I did send forth to the patrons. If you're a Patreon member, you should have seen that posted this morning. I'll remember to go post it over into the channel member side as well. So if you wish to, you could read it. Thank you all. Have a good